worship women. We only worship the deities. Because these deities can't talk back. These deities will not turn off their face. These deities are probably at the mercy of the person who's performing the puja, that archana. What we want to ask here is, in the beginning when I spoke about, the way patriarchy is being advanced, the way patriarchy is promoted in a very subtle, sophisticated manner. How many people came out in the Me Too campaign? And if they did come out in the Me Too campaign, it was not against men who was actually still in positions of power. It was the other middle or the lower ones. I called out to them. Probably their caste was subordinate caste. It could have been. How many came out was from the so-called elite section? Very few. In the Me Too, when a domestic worker wants to speak about her employer, nothing of that came out. So there is a very, very systematic gendered language also that keeps coming out. Everything that you see, it's a gendered messaging. You look at the entire issue of feminism itself. I am not against feminism. But look at feminism and tell me how many voices are there of Dalit women? How many voices of women who are poor, who have no resources, but are equally strong, coming out with that kind of a experience which they now want to change? No, those are never brought up because there is no access for all of that. The access is with somebody else, and they will go ahead and they speak loudly and whatever. And this is what we want to ask. Who will give me this response? Who is accountable for it? Nobody. We are talking about rape. We are looking at the entire judicial system. We are looking at the entire criminal justice system. We want to look at the state agencies. How cleverly the people who formulate the laws put in 5-6 different departments doing one clause, you do one clause, you do one clause. Simple. Look at the victim protection and the victim compensation. The judge awards me that compensation. The Karnataka State Legal Services Authority or any other state legal services authority decides whether it should be given to you or not. The law says that 25% of the compensation be awarded to the survivor as soon as the FIR is registered. Now, if you quickly take a survey and see, that will be less than 30% who have got that 25%. So systematically, we see to it that A, information is not given. B, you make the law itself to work in compartments. You have a fantastic law, you call it whatever, your preamble sounds absolutely great, but as you go down, you will look at it and you will say, oh, so this part of it is taken care of by the Labor Department, this bit of it, shelter is to be given by the Department of Women, compensation by the State Legal Service Authority, and now where do I go for protection? With the police. You're asking for this one survivor to go to all these people and all of them sit on high horses, whether it is the police, whether it is the judiciary, the Legal Service Authority, or the Department of Women and Child. Which law has made it possible for this law to reach the person who's affected, this victim, this survivor? And yet you formulated all these laws with my taxes, with my vote, but never considered that that should reach me. Some things are being done to create awareness. Right on top, it's a cosmetic, huge issue. Human trafficking in persons has increased. Again, like I'm saying, the world over, we are seeing that poverty is getting reiterated. Living wages is literally not being considered. Any kind of rights that workers must have is being disregarded. And trafficking in persons is happening not because of no job, or because of poverty, or because of illiteracy. These are factors that are causing vulnerabilities, but it is not because of that. Trafficking in human beings is happening because traffickers want to profit. because there is this atmosphere and an environment and a system that is being created for traffickers to profit. Profit from human misery, profit from human servitude, profit from this ignorance that these people have when they are being trafficked, and profiting from the apathy, the indifference, the inefficiency of the state agencies. They cannot be let off. How would you make policies and you make laws, not put structures into place? Or you put structures into place and you do not question the functionaries. So we have to tell that the state, the systems, the structures that be are aiding traffickers, and that is why human trafficking persists. We also want to talk about what happens when rescues happen, prosecution is happening, and there is no logical conclusion to that case, whichever that case may be. And again, like I spoke earlier, we have a law, but we have lots of different departments that are responsible for different sections and parts of that law. There is no coordination. There is no interdepartmental collaboration. There is no awareness, because the victim is now expected, the survivor is now expected to go around asking and demanding for this right or for that justice. We do the rescue. How often would somebody say, pull up the inspector from the labor and the revenue department? There was a license given for that establishment to function. How was that establishment license given? When you give the license, would you not go and do your inspections, because that is part of your job? And if you've done those inspections, would you say that in an entire 12-month period, you never saw people working there, laboring, because it's literal labor, in bondage, because you do not want to look at bondage. You think that bondage was like it was in the early 30s and 40s in chains. No, today the bondage is so different. From that bondage to threat to life, to simple ignorance, this kind of bondage is there, and the definition is not understood. Not understood by the police, not understood by the panchayat, certainly not by the state and the judiciary. Because often they ask questions like, so you are not chained, you are allowed once a week to go and buy your provisions and come. What is this bondage you're talking about? Now they are telling you that there was no minimum wages paid. They were not given off to move out of that vicinity. They continued to stay there. They were threatened that if you actually move off from here, we go back to your village and your family will be in trouble. And that is a huge fear for me. I'm not going to run away. Even on Sundays or holidays, when they are allowed to go to the market or to the shop, one member of the family is allowed. The rest stay back in the vicinity. Why would the vicinity have gates with locks? If you say that they are free to go and come, why would you not tell them that these are your wages? Why would a loan of, say, 50,000 become 5-6 lakhs in a month? What is the kind of calculation that is being done? So the labor department and the revenue department, the departments that issue these licenses have not worked. Okay, for whatever reason, because we also know that there is immense political clout. We also know that the judiciary and the police, there is no much independence where they can go ahead and do that. This is my job. The law provides me that authority to go ahead and do it. So we want to discuss these issues. It's not philosophical when we say of independent. There is a lack of independence in the judiciary as well as in the police and in the other state systems. We need to address this. How do you address it? It has to come from the top. That's why we've elected people. That's why we put them into power. That's why we've told that you need to look at these issues. There are 3 different sections. We continue to function in those sections. The executive does not want to do anything. The political party that can ask, the government that can question, does not want to do anything. And this is where we want to ask ourselves, if citizens are going to be fighting all the time, what is the state doing? What is the administration doing? What are elected representatives doing? Because then we get bonded and then we have no voice. We get trafficked and there is no voice. Somebody was talking about, pornography came from the West. Really? So where was Kama Sutra then? You use all of that and you come back to say that pornography was adapted from the West? What about all the Devadasi system? Was it adopted from the West? Why would you continue with that system in different forms?
I think that
It is because
glorification
power
of
and
the-
oppression.
Yes.
And this power and oppression is why trafficking is happening. Nobody is questioning. We're saying today we have laws, interstate migration laws. Please tell which state in my country has followed the law to the T. Forget T. Which law, 4 or 5 of those clauses that have been followed? Nobody. Beginning with registration. I haven't registered anybody who have come into my state for work. I have not held the contractor, I have not held the employer responsible for registering this. And that's why you did Aadhaar. Your Aadhaar was all of this. But what have you done now with Aadhaar? You're simply doing it for the surveillance and not for entitlements to reach citizens. Because if that did, then surveillance we say, okay, jane do, because we are India, a jugaad country. Surveillance, okay, chalo, karo. What will you do now? But you haven't even given me my entitlements. When you don't give me all of this, I'm vulnerable to be trafficked. And once I'm trafficked, trafficking for sexual exploitation, for pornography, bonded and forced labor, and organ trade. Can you imagine this number of institutions, departments that are involved here? Everybody working in silos and compartments. And everybody comes out to give you an annual report and say how much they did and how little they spent. That's why they're sending everything back now to the center because they didn't know where to spend it. Life and the society and my state is so good. There is actually no trafficking happening. People are coming on their own. Contractors are bringing them and taking that money and going, but that's not trafficking. So we look at these issues, defining it to suit ourselves. And when we talk of the independence of the judiciary, we talk of the independence of the police, we want to question why this nexus with political parties and politicians? When do we want to challenge them? Which court can we challenge it? What is the kind of justice we will get? Then we want to ask, with all the tax money that is being budgeted every year, what have you done when my population has increased, my cases have increased in the courts? Why would you not fill in those vacancies? Are you saying that you do not have qualified people to come and fill those vacancies? What are you trying to say? We've gone to being 10 times more, and the number of people working in all of these establishments are still less than 1/3. And when you talk less than 1/3, there are prosecutors running to 3 courts. Which case would they give their attention to? We are talking of being child-friendly and woman-friendly. You have one entrance, both for the accused as well as for the victim survivor to enter. Even your structures you have not been able to build properly. Forget about structures which were built 40, 50, 30 years ago. What about structures that were built the last 5, 6 years? You couldn't think that there requires to be a separate waiting room for these kind of victims and survivors. There needs to be a separate entry so that they don't see the face of the perpetrator who is anyway threatening them. So we want to ask, what is this that you forget? Are you saying that we do not have the intelligence to have architecture of that nature? Systematically, we will see to it that the poor, the oppressed, the illiterate, the ignorant remain so that power can continue to be abused. The other bit I wanted to talk about was also the investigating agencies, the forensic evidence. Even today, we are struggling with COVID tests. I'm not talking about the forensic, we're talking about COVID tests. How many hospitals did you set in place? Why would you want to talk about PPP but give so much power to privatization? Private hospitals have a responsibility. This is an emergency when we talk of COVID. And we want to look at cases of violence against women and children as an emergency, where the state does not take this many months for a forensic evidence to come forward. we heard about this lady who was raped in the quarantine facility. And the police are saying we've not yet arrested him because we want to wait for the COVID test to come. 3 days, 5 days. In the meantime, my question would be, did you actually get your statement, 164 statement done of this survivor? Have you done it? Because now my courts are allowing all of this. Virtual statements can be made. Have you done that? Because you need to get all of these things in place. Or are you going to say, I have 90 days, I'll do one of those days? On the 91st day, I will say, oh, fine, sorry, she ran away, she's absconding, she's dead. I hope so. Nothing happens to her. But these are excuses that they make constantly. And it's not that we are being critical. It's we want accountability. It's time that you tell us what you're doing with our money. It's time that you tell us that the power that we vested in you is being judiciously utilized, not used and abused. And you need to understand whether you make the laws, you execute the laws, or you implement the laws, you have to consult us, the public, the citizens, when you think that there needs to be a change and an amendment. You cannot go off and say, I've decided now to do this, so we will go ahead and do it. Constitution gave you the power, and Constitution gives me the power to be part of that consultation. So make it possible. Don't make public citizens to run pillar to post. You come to us. Justice must reach me. It must come to me. I must not be combating, fighting, struggling. You see the words that we use? Up and down court steps and police station steps. You come to me. Make it possible. What stops you from having mobile vans so that there could be easy dispensation of justice, quick and swift dispensation of justice? We've seen that in the past in some states it is happening for several cases. Why can't you do that? This is exactly what you want to see when you talk of digital India. We also want to be a mobile India. We want to be an India that makes justice literally mobile, reaching the last person. Thank you.
Thanks.